Hello everybody and welcome to today's webinar, Quick Tips to Take Your Geo-Targeting to the Next Level, hosted by Hannafin Marketing. My name is Jamie Newton and I am the Communications Manager for Hannafin and I'll be your moderator today. Your presenter is Will Larkham. He is an account manager here at Hannafin, as well as a PPC Hero blogger. If you want to follow him, you can on Twitter at Will_Larkham. And just know that his spirit animal is a husky.
It is indeed. I am loyal, energetic. I love the snow, love being outside, like to ski. And in my home life, I've been known to be called a little bit stubborn too. So, husky it is.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us today, Will. Before Will gets started with his presentation, we just have a few housekeeping items to get in order. If you want to join the conversation, include the hashtag ThinkPPC in your Twitter tweets. We will be live tweeting. You can also send questions through the Twitter tweets or use the webinar question box right there on your control panel. We will have a live Q&A at the very end of Will's presentation. So send those in as soon as you think of them. We have a quick poll question for you guys. So how long have you been in PPC? Less than a year, 1 to 3 years, 3 to 5 years, or 5+ years? Will, how long have you been in PPC?
For me, that would be B there, the 1 to 3 years. Started my career here at Hannafin Marketing as a production associate. And after going through the rigorous training, the ramp up, kind of worked my way up to account manager here.
Very nice. Awesome. All right. Well, let's see what people are saying. All right. It looks like a lot of people are in your same category, Will. 1 to 3 years at 34%, less than a year 26%, 3 to 5 years 17%, and 5+ years at 23%. Awesome. Welcome, you guys. Thanks for joining us today. All right. Well, without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Will for his presentation.
All right, well, thank you, Jamie, for the excellent introduction. Let's see, before we kind of really get things rolling here, I just want to thank you guys for taking time out of your lunch day or out of your work day here to walk through some good quick tips for geo-targeting. And just looking at that poll there, we have a lot of experience here with a fair amount of people with even up to 5 years of experience. So we're going to get into some definitely more advanced tactics towards the end here. But it being that lunchtime, we'll start off a little slow with a basic roundup, kind of set our baseline of how and why we do geo-targeting. From there, we'll move into pulling reports. Just make sure we have that actionable data that lets us go into the optimization opportunities that we'll see here, and really what we can relay to the client, make sure we're giving them the proper information that they can use for their own purposes. Moving into how we identify opportunity, through the data we have, through making it in a digestible format. And then beyond that, we'll start going into the tactics of what we want to do there. So how we'll split it out, which will kind of bleed into micro-targeting, meaning getting really specific with what we're doing here. And then finally, we'll go to our final aspect here, which is geo-targeting meets seasonality. Now, those are two variables at play that just about every account manager is constantly juggling, but rarely do I see it connected to make geo-targeting and seasonality sort of one. So with that said, let's jump into this basic roundup and kind of set that baseline I was talking about as we kind of ramp up into everything else. So first off, the big question, why do we geo-target? The overarching obvious goal here is to show ads only where there is value. There's two types there. We'll have opt-in marketing and opt-out marketing. And as opt-in marketing goes, that would be setting our basic framework, our basic outside for where we are going to show ads. By this, I mean we are going to set the limitation in which it falls in. So let's say we want to show ads in the United States. So that's going to pull us into our opt-in. On the other side, we have opt-out marketing, which is going to be excluding content within it. So let's say we have restrictions that don't allow us to market to either Hawaii or Alaska. That would be our opt-out aspect of it, of showing ads. Beyond that, what sort of other things are going to come into play with our geo-targeting. And the first off is geographic limitations. Now this could be shipping, or it could also be just absolute distance from the origin for services such as, say, you're a plumber, or you just have a very finite reach with your business. Next is higher value locations. Now what I mean by this is maybe the demographic in there shows certain aspects that are likely to produce at a higher conversion clip, or also produce higher average order values. Beyond that, we look at geo-targeting because of marketed differences. Just based on the competition there, the competitors we have at play, we're likely to see vastly different CPCs, and what that means is different CPAs, different overall return on revenue. So it's important to keep looking at these and make sure we're updating accordingly. Another is legal restrictions. Take, for example, maybe a insurance provider. You'll see different statutes for different cities, states, internationally, and that's going to affect how we geo-target. Lastly, of course, what we're all looking for as marketers is the proper efficiency throughout. So let's jump into how to geo-target, which as we've kind of established, most of you are probably extremely familiar with this. But personally, I like to do most of my geo-targeting in the editor itself. It's a great way to copy over pages that, or excuse me, locations that we've seen past and bring them over to campaigns of similar content. And also, equally as important is the negative locations that we have in that, because of the restrictions before, it's very quick to pull them over. But nonetheless, Bing and AdWords alike are very similar in that you can go to the Settings tab, you'll go straight to Locations, you'll press your big red button there, Locations, and then you'll start to select which areas you want to target here with your opt-in and your opt-out, so your targeted locations and your excluded locations. You have plenty of options here between countries, state, province, a designated market area, county, zip code, and although not mentioned here, we also have radius targeting at our disposal. So once we've kind of set up where we want to target, there's two other options we really need to focus on here before really getting it rolling and making sure we've got kind of our baseline set up, and that is our advanced location options. So the first of these options here, you have three to pick from AdWords, are people in, searching for, or showing interest in your targeted location. Now that's what's recommended by AdWords, and typically what you're going to opt into. It's going to keep the umbrella, your target audience, as large as possible, while also making sure they're qualified within that location. However, you do have two other options here, such as people in your target location, which may be the option of choice for you if, say, you really need them to be in that area at that exact time. So in that case, it would be an industry of immediate need, such as auto towing, or a plumber, or a hospital in that sense, or emergency hospital, excuse me. And lastly here, a big part that we'll talk about here today is how and why to set your bid adjustments. When you initially set up, you're more than welcome to kind of bid up or bid down by proximity, by what you feel there is value in these areas. So that option is there for you right upon implementation. So now that we've talked about how to geo-target, let's talk about pulling the report and getting that actionable data that you'll need. So first off, how to pull reports. Option A here is going into the Locations Targeting tab, which is the location we were just talking about in the interface. You'll be able to choose your view here, so you're kind of segmenting by what brought your ad up, so it'll be what triggered your ad or where users actually were. After that, you'll be able to segment to the level of need. So what I mean by that is depending on how many locations you put in and how granular you get, meaning country, county, zip code, you'll be able to segment by that to pull up all the information you can need regarding clicks, impressions, CPC, conversions, really any metric that you want to pull in and modify in those columns. Now the limitations we have here is that in this view, we're only going to see the reports, or excuse me, the locations that you directly targeted, that you put in yourself. and there's a lot more specificity that we can get in that area. We can get much more narrowed in and get a larger range of information on that. So how do we do that? We go to option B, which is in the Dimensions tab here. You'll go to View Geographic after going to the Dimensions tab, and then you'll be able to update your columns for your key performance indicators here. So anything that you need and are trying to measure here, which in most people's case will likely be cost per conversion or CPL. And beyond that, we can start to look at the different geos here at a wide range of how specific we get. So we have region, metro area, city, most specific location, and at the end we're going to be able to see our location type to be able to pull that up. So now that we know how to make the data or accrue the data, actually, let's make sense of it and start to really identify opportunity and start to come up with a little bit of more advanced tactics here. So first off, you'll pull the proper report here, likely go into that Dimensions tab. And now the key here is you can go campaign by campaign, but oftentimes you're able to zero in on a specific category, a product category, so to speak. So just a small tip there is that when you are doing your naming conventions, both at an ad group and campaign level, if you're able to keep those in a way that is consistent throughout, it'll really go far ways when you need to filter by it specifically, by campaign name or ad group name or specific label that is, for being able to do your geo reports later. So once you've got that, you're going to pivot and sort it. And the reason I say pivot is because likely we're going to have a whole category here with multiple campaigns, and that'll pull up your specific geos more than once. So you're going to want to pivot it there and then sort your data to what makes sense for you, and then also apply a little bit of conditional formatting here just to give a bit visual sense to performance. And once we've reached this point, we can start to assess opportunities, both positive and negative. So if we look at some of the dummy data we have down there for what would be an international campaign, we start to see that United States is the main driver of spend here, the lion's share of converted clicks, and really is probably the baseline of a cost per converted click here at about $107 a piece. Now we see the next driver of volume here is the United Kingdom. On the other hand, it has a much elevated cost per click here and is taking a large percentage of the spend compared to some stronger candidates such as Brazil, the Philippines, France here. So the question is, what are we going to do with that? Well, from data to action, the first step that we all love to use is bid modifiers. This is going to allow you to adjust your bids either positive or negatively based on your KPI. So as we discussed earlier, we can either base this on a CPA, a ROAS, an ROI, or even your click-through rate for some of those that are looking for engagement factor. How we are going to do this is a very simple formula-based approach here that is going to give us a true defensible reason for why we changed these as opposed to just bidding up or down based on a feeling of value. So what we'll do is if you take a look at that image on the right, to get our GeoBid multiplier, we're going to take the average campaign CPA and then divide it by the Geo CPA and then subtract that from 1. And that'll get, or subtract 1 from that, excuse me, and that'll get us our new modifier here. Now, something to keep in mind when we do create this with a formula is that based on the traffic level of each geo, we can see some very high and very low modifiers come in just because of the sampling size. So really make sure to set sort of a positive and negative ceiling and basement, so to speak, for each of those. So that way we're not going too crazy with our bidding and moving too far away from what our anchored basic desktop or mobile bid is in this case. And lastly, a quick tip is whenever you do take over a new account or are speaking with a client, make sure to ask questions regarding why we are staying away from certain locales or why previous management sought to bid up in certain places. So that way we have a full understanding and we can revisit this frequently to see if the the modifiers that we put in place are having the intended impact. Next, beyond modifiers, what are we going to do? We're going to get granular. And so what do I mean by that is we're going to break out campaigns on a geo level to get more specific and a better view from a reporting sense of how this is all working out. So a quick rule of thumb here is if you have budget remaining in these campaigns or campaign group, you're more going to be focused on just modifiers. So that means bidding up based on the data where we're seeing efficiencies. So we can push more traffic there and start kind of capitalizing on the remaining impression share. Now on the flip side, in budget-constrained campaigns or campaign categories, geo-specific campaigns are going to become very important. So once we've identified some of those efficiencies, that's where we're going to take those strongest performers at a locale or location level and put them in their own campaign. That way we're designating separate budget from them, can start doing our bidding on that process there, and I'm allowing them to really shine and see how legitimate that data is by opening up the window more. Now after that, don't forget to still include your negative modifiers in the original campaign to continue showing with limited risk, but still optimizing the volume of traffic you're getting there and pulling everything in you can, every ounce you can out of those campaigns. So that kind of leads us into our next topic of discussion here, which is micro-targeting. What is micro-targeting? This is making granular campaigns on a very specific level to separate out budgets and really connect with that audience. So what we're saying here is it's specific location-based targeting for services that in particular receive a boost from local traffic. So examples of this could be transportation or travel. Very much that hub is where the primary or the lion's share of their traffic is going to come from, and there's certainly more value in that area. Another example is education, where certain local colleges or schools are going to have a better sense of reputation, of just a better connection with their audience in the local area. The same can be said maybe about the rehabilitation vertical, as well as health and medicine, where people are willing to travel far, but at the same time they're looking for that service as close as possible. What this all really entails is intertwining into brick and mortar stores, where micro-targeting is really going to allow you to zero in on an audience and kind of double up on that traffic that's coming through. So the tip here is to go beyond city and zip targeting, however, with layered radius targeting. Oftentimes a city or zip or county kind of sets these arbitrary lines based on where the city is, and it says we are not going to market outside of here. However, frankly, that's not quite how audience base works for most companies. With layered radius targeting, we're able to expand that reach with lowered risk. So it pulls it out with lowered risk by being able to optimize our bid adjustment up and down in sort of a layered sense as we get farther and farther from the distance origin. So an example on the right is included there, which that's fairly aggressive targeting for bidding up with the radius, but nonetheless it gives you a good sense of how you would layer this in order to get it slowly farther out and adjusting those bid adjust or modifiers accordingly. One other benefit of doing this is it's going to start to get us distance from origin information, and in that dimensions tab we're going to be able to still pull in and see all the cities, counties, neighborhoods that are in this area that we can target, and start to separate those out more and for our micro-targeting, and even start to exclude there if there's certain areas we're seeing don't match for us and aren't strong competitors for what we're looking at. And lastly, being able to separate in this way and continually getting more specific with our targeting, we have an opportunity to micro-message here. And so what I mean by that is really speaking to the audience and their location and why the product that we have or the service that we have is the best for them in that area. Kind of a bonus tip there is you can loop in geo ad customizers, which is something we've talked about quite a bit on PPC Hero, so feel free to check that out to get a little extra information on those and how you could use that in a scalable fashion. Now, next thing here with our micro targeting campaigns is remarketing. And now remarketing is the low-hanging fruit that we all talk about, and nearly every campaign manager loves to take advantage of to the best of their ability. Now, with geo-targeted campaigns, this can be a little bit more tricky because of the fact that we do targeting at a campaign level. It means that if we are going to continue to remarket these in a specific fashion and be able to speak to the individual locales that they came through, we're going to have to make a whole handful of campaigns, right? Actually wrong. We're just going to have one remarketing campaign here. And how are we going to avoid overlap here with geo-targeting done at the campaign level? We can actually leverage Google Analytics to make remarketing lists for your geo campaigns. So what this means is using sort of a sequence event to pull in and create an audience pool for those that came through a specific geo campaign. And so by coming through that, we've already pre-qualified them as from that location, and now we can double down on that same audience we are trying to take advantage of before. And so that what we do now is create that one list, separate out by ad group, and then apply our specific geo at the ad group level, and can now start hitting remarketing in a very easy to do at a large scale. So next here and last is seasonality by geo. Now this is something we've talked about before. Or in the beginning, excuse me, and how seasonality and both geo-targeting are very much a large foundation of every account manager's PPC strategy here, but less often do we actually connect those two elements together. So what is the problem we're looking to establish here, or looking to identify? And the problem is that we have efficiency and volume, which fluctuate across the targeted locations. The complication here is that certain locations always perform better. And now what I mean by that is the optimizations we've done in the past, modifiers we pulled in, have made other locations start to perform better than we saw, say, last year. So the example here is a retailer. With anything from shoes to boots to sunglasses, you're really going to see different areas of the country and the nation perform differently at different times of the year. And travel and tourism are very much different too. So we want to be able to pull in our past data, what we've seen recently, but also weight it with what we saw year over year. So what do we do for that? It's actually quite simple. The solution here is just going to be utilizing a weighted location report. So this is actually a tactic that was developed by Jacob Brown. You can follow him at Jake Brown PPC, a account manager here, or excuse me, a senior account manager here at Hannafin. And what this actually does is it equally weights the last X months of data with year-over-year data of the upcoming months. So that way we're taking advantage of what we see as valuable data before, but also looping in the seasonal trends that we saw for the upcoming month. So below, if you take a peek at that, we have it split out by a couple different states there. And our KPI in this sense is a revenue per click, so we're looking at an efficiency metric here. And what we do with that is we take our KPI and we get the percent difference between that and the campaign average. We do that for both the last 4.5 months in this case, and for the next month and a half. So once we've got the percentage difference there from both those to the campaign average across all geos, we then take an average of that to get our predicted revenue per click difference, and that's going to help us get our modifier there to help us figure out, where is there opportunity, where do we need to pull back. And just like we discussed before, we still want to set those upper and lower limits just to make sure we're not changing bids too radically here based on a smaller sample size. And nonetheless, it's also nice to have nice round numbers, so then we look back, we can recall exactly what the methodology was. But nonetheless, that is how we loop in seasonality with geo-targeting. So the key takeaways here as we kind of loop back to what we discussed here is first, why do we geo-target? To show our ads where we want them to through both opt-in and opt-out targeting. We discussed how to pull reports relevant to your KPIs, so that's both in the dimensions tab or the locations tab. We discussed how to use bid modifiers by looking at your average campaign CPA and then creating a difference there with upper and lower limits. We discussed that you do want to revisit this frequently, as we do see competitors enter and leave the space, which can really change CPCs and CPAs alike. We discussed how we want to separate out efficiencies into their own campaign, so that way we can give them budget, we can let them shine, we can see what scaling the volume in those campaigns will do. Next, we talked about micro-targeting, how continually getting more granular with our campaigns here has great impact and great benefits for both reporting purposes and for our ability to reach the audience through a very clear message. And lastly, we discussed how we can tie geo-targeting into seasonality and be able to predict sort of what to expect in the coming months in these locations.
Awesome, wonderful presentation, Will. Thank you. And Will mentioned earlier about GeoAd customizers, and one of our senior account managers, Matt Umbro, actually put together a couple of templates for GeoAd customizers. So if you want the link, it is available right now in your chat box. So you can click on that. That'll take you to Hannafin's resource library, and you can download those templates with no email. That is free. So real quick before we get to the live Q&A, just a couple of things. One, we have an awesome conference coming up. It's in London. It's October 24th through the 26th. HeroConf is a PPC-focused only conference. There is so many great speakers like Brad Geddes, Fred Valliers, some of our own people, Carrie Albright will be there, Elena Thompson. So if you want to know anything and everything about PPC, definitely check out this conference. Next year it will be in LA in April. So if you go to heroconf.com, you'll be able to check out both conferences, or if you want to go to London specifically, that website URL is right there on the left hand of your screen. All right, a quick offer for you guys. Hannafin does account analysis. Now these are for companies and brands that spend $15,000 per month in ad spend, and what it is one of Hannafin's experts looks into your account and compares the structural results to industry standards. So it's really a second pair of eyes on your account to make sure that you're double checking your work and you have a fresh set of eyes. We highly suggest this to in-house PPC teams. So if you are interested, go ahead and check that yes, or if you're not, go ahead and check no thanks. We'll keep this up just a little bit so you have some time to think about it. All right, we're going to go ahead next into the live Q&A. And Will, we just have a couple of questions for you. The first one. At what threshold do you begin to exclude locations that have performed poorly, as opposed to setting a bid modifier?
Let's see, that's a good question. Oftentimes, I will actually not immediately exclude low performers, because we can leverage those bid modifiers to still pull in that traffic. If we're able to pull it low enough and use that formula to set what we perceive as a low risk there, then that's actually the best thing to do, is to pull in those modifiers, and even if they're very, very heavy, that's still okay. We're willing to get that low level if it does come through. Now, if we put a heavy modifier on and we're still accruing that traffic and not hitting CPA goals, then it's time to get rid of it and move on, and just essentially be able to know that the data is telling us that is not our audience and we no longer need to show ads there.
Got you. What do you recommend as far as citywide campaigns versus radius?
As citywide versus radius? It depends on sort of your service. Now, to say you need to be limited within a specific city and you see value there, it certainly can be how you want to handle it, and for simplicity's sake, city targeting can be your best bet. Now, on the other hand, if you are able to use a radius targeting, now that's going to pull the outskirts of it, and of course it uses a little back end to figure out, how far out, how much we want to do. So yeah, so and in particular for brick and mortar stores, we're really going to see this as the most value because certain large metro areas and larger cities don't need to be pulling that entire city in. They want to be pulling in, a specific area within it that they actually think most would come to.
All right, so next question, is there such things as getting too specific with your geo-targeted campaigns?
Yes, there absolutely is such thing as getting too specific with your geo campaigns here. For one, we only have so many hours, so much sweat equity that we can put into each account. So when we are separating these out, we want to know there's true value in it. We want to know that we're putting, the right amount of, effort into it, and that when we do scale it in this fashion, that we can continue to optimize and make the right routine changes on it. Without having 101 unnecessary campaigns. So you need to kind of weigh those factors on how much volume is coming through here. And if it's a lot, frankly, you probably should be separating it out for that specific geo. If it's not that much and it's just efficient, you need to start thinking about how much time you have to devote to the individual account.
All right, next question. So this person says, if you're running multiple geo campaigns for the same services, the people in target area makes a lot of sense there as well. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So you would want to zero in with, so this is going back to those advanced settings where if you're running multiple geo campaigns, for the same service, you really would want to select just the people in your targeted location. So we're not going to see any overlap, or at least as much overlap. If we do sort of extend it out with that sense, particularly if you are a brick and mortar location with, say, 3 stores, in one city, you're likely to see a lot of overlap in between there because of the setting you have where they may have showed interest in that area. So if you do just people in my targeted location, you're going to get much less overlap and more likely to funnel that traffic properly to each location, to each audience pool.
All right, great. We have time for one more question. How accurate is the geo-targeting at small radiuses?
That's a good question. I found it to be pretty good. Overall, we'll always see some, sessions peep through from outside of that area, with excluded locations and whatnot. We'll still see them come through, but Google usually tends to do a pretty good job at least keeping it within that that general framework. And so you will see exceptions to the rule, like always in PPC, and there will certainly be it depends along with how accurate it's going to be. But nonetheless, it's still proven to be a pretty effective tool that we've utilized in the past.
Great. All right. Thank you, Will, for answering all those. That is all the time that we have today. If you have any feedback or have any questions, you can email us at marketing@hennepinmarketing.com. You can also reach out to Will at will_Larkham. And he also mentioned Jake Brown. So if you want to reach out to Jake Brown, he's at Jake Brown PPC, and you'll also find that in your chat box. One last question we had I want to make sure to answer is we will be sending out the webinar recording and the slides. You should find that in your inboxes tomorrow. All right, thank you everybody for joining us, and I hope you have a great day.